Hello, everybody. This is Carol Lems-Dworkin's two daughters. I'm Kristen Lems,
And I'm Martha Rosenberg.
and we're going to take you through a quick narration of the PowerPoint we created on her 95th birthday, April 1st, 2019. First, we'll talk a little bit about her early years. Go ahead, Martha.
Here are photos of our mother's grandparents. On her mother's side, we don't have a photograph of the grandfather, but we do have a photograph of the grandmother, who was Nellie Wicks. And on her father's side, we have photographs of Isidore and Rose Silver, who were immigrants from Poland. And as you can see, all of the grandparents were immigrants to the United States. But as we were not able to find a photograph of the grandfather. Now here we have a photo of our grandparents before they married, when they were just dating. And what's very cute about the photo of our grandmother on the right side is that she's written lovingly Eddie in 1919, clearly a gift to her fiance. Her name was Edna, but she was called Eddie. Our grandparents were married for more than 50 years. As you can see, they very, very much loved each other. They only had one child, which was our mother.
This is the first picture ever taken of our mom. Go ahead.
In this picture, our mother is wearing a sweater knitted by Jane Addams, who is considered to be the first social worker in the United States of America. Her family, my grandmother's family, were recipients of Hull House care, and that's how this sweater was knitted by Jane Addams. And there's a little anecdote about the sweater where, when my mother became older, she found a yarn and pulled it out of the sweater, thinking that maybe she discovered something interesting, and she proceeded to ruin the sweater.
At least we have a picture.
Now here our mother is only 2 years old, and you can see how cute she is. She was just a little doll, according to everybody's memories. Here she's with our grandmother, who is also very beautiful, feeding her an ice cream cone in the park. And here we have the old automobile called an Oakland 8, in which our grandparents and our mother toured a lot of the United States. Our grandmother was not just a great seamstress, but also a very talented dress designer. She would actually conceptualize and design a dress. And in this photograph, our mother is wearing one of those dresses. Our mother said that when she used to go to school, the kids would open her coat up to see what she was wearing, because she was always in a gorgeous outfit, thanks to her mother. Now here we have an autograph book, which before Facebook, of course, is how we registered our friends. And this particular signature or autograph is from Betty Wedgeworth, who went on to become Betty Banner. It's from Clinton Elementary School, and it says, as we often wrote in these autograph books, "You are too sweet to be forgotten."
Betty Wedgeworth, Betty Banner, went on to become not only a friend of our mom's, but her children, her child and her daughter-in-law became friends with our generation, and then her granddaughter, Catherine, became friends with my children, Kenan and Karima. So we've had 3 generations of friendship.
Here's another photo of our mother as she's growing up. Here she might be around 11, and you can see how cute she is. She's got a little button on. I don't know what it says, but she was developing into a very darling, a charming young lady. Here she is at age 11, and there's a little resemblance, really, to Marilyn Monroe in this photograph.
All right. Maybe this one.
More so in this one. And here she's in a public park, maybe the park by their home, which was Indian Boundary. It's still there, it's still very popular. And you can see that she's posing. Her hair is growing longer. She's wearing braids.
Actually, this was found in a music review thing when she was already concertizing, and they said something about pianist Carol Silver relaxes for a moment or something like that. So she was kind of a cover girl inadvertently for this music magazine. That might have actually worked against her because her beauty and talent almost were not considered to be compatible for those in those days for women.
Now here is our mother graduating from Amundsen High School, a public high school on the north side of Chicago. She was only 15 when she graduated from high school because she had skipped 2 grades in elementary school. She was that bright. And the joke is made that she skipped the grades where you learn handwriting because her handwriting has always been atrocious.
Now we move into her years of intensive performing. She did begin practicing piano and studying with fine piano teachers from an early age, maybe 7 or 8 years old, and started winning a whole bunch of contests, and they started to gain momentum as she entered her early teens.
And Howard Wells was a very well-known teacher whose pupils went on to win many, many competitions and played many concerts. So he was an extremely important name in those days.
And his office was in the Fine Arts Building. She would go to the Fine Arts Building for her lessons.
And by the age of 15, she was already having publicity photos because her career demanded it. It is said that my mother loved playing the piano and practicing the piano so much that she would play as much as 8 hours a day, just working on and perfecting her skills. Here you can see a flyer that reflects some of the blurbs that she received. This one from the New York Times that says her pianism is extraordinary. Quite the quote. By the time Mom was 17, she was giving solos with orchestras. And in 1941, she soloed with the Chicago Businessmen's Orchestra. Soon thereafter, when she was 18, she was said to take Chicago by storm because she was so talented, and probably also because she was so young and up and coming. And so she was starting to get many newspaper and critical reviews of her talents. This is one of the most important early successes our mother had during the war, World War II. She played at Orchestra Hall, played our national anthem, which we call the Star-Spangled Banner, with an arrangement that she had herself written, and it meant a lot during the war. And here is a photo after the concert showing just how successful it was. There's our grandmother, her mother, on the left of the photo, and her flowers and the pretty dress. And the next day, this notice appeared in the paper that says at the top that it was sold out, and some people actually had to sit on the stage because she was that well received and that remarkable that they sold out and actually put people on the stage. Kristen, some of these musicians were well known in New York, is that correct?
That's right. She performed at Town Hall in New York, and she was part of a schedule or a series that included people like Yehudi Menuhin, Robert Casadesus, who was also her teacher later, and Jascha Heifetz. So as you can see, she was in very esteemed company and considerably younger than they were, and I think the only woman there. No, there was one other, but very few women appeared in these most prestigious venues.
Here we have a blurb from the Chicago Tribune that says affinity of beauty and brains. She continued to receive these notices and write-ups and critics, positive criticism throughout her whole career. Here's another one, another quote from her press releases, or her press coverage.
We like this photo because it's one of the most dramatic, with her customary flower in her hair. And she played with the Grant Park, or a WGN Symphony Orchestra in Grant Park at age 20. And this was the notice for it. And right after that, she was going to study with Robert Casadesus, very esteemed French teacher and performer.
And here's a photograph when she was studying with Casadesus, and of course she's circled in the blue, but we can see that she's the only one with the flower in the hair, which was kind of a signature of her look back then.
I guess she was a flower child 20 years before the rest of us.
And here she's standing alone with Casadesus, again, who is so well known and esteemed. Here is our mother in front of the home that she lived in during those years, and it was our grandparents' home for 50 years on the north side of Chicago.
It's funny, I noticed after we chose this photo that seems to be an avocado plant that she's growing. And I think trying to grow avocado plants from a seed has always been one of her favorite hobbies. And she had one that was growing at her house on Brown Street for at least 10 years, and she called it Ava, the avocado.
And also, it might be mentioned that later on she developed an interest in botany, and that was her degree at Northwestern, though we're getting ahead of ourselves here. So here we see our mother with our grandparents, and you can see everybody's so happy because she's coming into her talents. They're so proud of her, their only child. And I always point out how tall she is here. You can see she's as tall as her father.
But it was around this time that she decided to leave performing, moved out of her home, and moved into a dorm at Northwestern, where she became a student of botany. So this section is about her years at Northwestern, about politics, and her marriage.
And probably the war influenced her so strongly that she became a peace advocate early, which shaped our worldview, because she was working for the World Republic. She also worked for the Inside UN, an early United Nations group. But here we can see some photos of the young activists that she worked with and that she became. She was a peace worker at an early age.
In addition to being an excellent student and being inducted into Phi Beta Kappa, an honor society, and doing her peace work, she also managed to meet a fella. This was Bill Lems. They found romance. She got a science degree, and she also got, I guess, an MRS degree.
And what's notable is they were married at a little chapel that is still in existence at Northwestern next to the Garrett Theological Seminary. Very little chapel, but if you would view it now, you'd wonder how you could fit many people in there. But it was a beautiful, modest wedding. It was a happy day for both of our parents. My dad had just left the war, and he was a prisoner of war, and she had just left her piano career, and they wanted to start a new life, and they did.
And the wedding vows were performed in Dutch as well as English. That was very special. Our dad was a native speaker of Dutch, and then off they go to their honeymoon. Later on, they took a steamer to Europe for a longer vacation.
And our mother got the chance to meet her Dutch in-laws. As you can see here, she's in the native costume, but our father had some sisters and brothers. She got to meet all of them. They were younger because he was the oldest, so they were very impressed with this tall stranger from the United States who was now their relative.
So they married, and she cut her hair. Here's a picture of our parents.
And
And
in this photo, we see the two arrivals into the family. Uh, Kristen would be 2, and I would be just born. And you can see how happy they are. It was the 1950s dream. Everybody thought back then there'd be no more war. No, the world would be a wonderful new place. Here's Kristen and myself growing up in the house we were born in, where they first lived at 600 Dodge. Our grandmother often dressed us alike as twins because we did look similar.
I wonder if she made those outfits.
You know, it's very possible. She made many of our clothes. Around this time, when Mother had graduated from Northwestern, she had 2 young kids. She began teaching piano to the area kids and neighborhood kids and school kids that that we knew. And she would periodically have what she'd call class meetings, where each of her students could perform their pieces for the other students. And these class meetings were very popular. They gave the kids a chance to perform and meet each other. And so this is one group. Of course, they're clowning around, but one group of her students.
When our parents divorced, this was the way she paid the bills and made her living. But at the same time, she also went to graduate school at Northwestern, where she got a degree. And there's one of the places we lived. They were humble, but we still had a lot of fun. This was in North Evanston. We lived above a garage, the second floor there. And she taught a lot of pupils there in that house as well as in the previous one.
And we might add here that in order to teach, she did have to get that master's degree, and she worked here we see her receiving the degree, but it meant the world, because in those days, women didn't work much, and for them to support a family and be a single parent household was not easy. And she realized to teach and to support us, she had to have that master's degree. So that was a lot of work on her part.
That allowed her to be hired at Kendall College, where she became a faculty member of the music department and eventually the director of music. She was hired right after getting the master's degree.
And at Kendall, which my mom loved, she met a lot of students that you might not have met at Northwestern who weren't necessarily well off financially, but very talented. And one of them in particular, who we'll see in a slide, went on to become extremely successful in a piano competition.
And meanwhile,
our mother remarried to Lems-Dworkin, who she met in the Unitarian Church, and they fell in love. For both of them, it was a second marriage. They married on the lake on a pier, and you can see the water behind them. And they were very much in love. As soon as they met, he had 2 children, and of course, she had 2 children.
This is the first notice that we found in the press of her being called Mrs. Dworkin. So this must have been right around, it's 1966.
Now here's a student from Kendall who went on to become extremely famous. He won a competition that enabled him to give a whole concert at Soldier Field, which you can imagine how big that audience was. 1964.
This was a very big deal. He was from Indonesia, in fact, from Sumatra, one of the islands in Indonesia, which was discriminated against the Chinese minority there. He was Chinese Indonesian. My mom and he were very close. He passed away only about a month before this 95th birthday celebration. We were very, very sad to hear it, and we're going to make sure to send a link to this PowerPoint to his widow and family.
And even though he was so talented at piano, he went on to become a surgeon. And some people say those skills are interrelated, the musical and the medical, the same part of the brain.
It brought great attention and notoriety to Kendall College too, because they were only a 2-year school, but here they had the top pianist in the Chicagoland Music Festival.
From Kendall.
And here was another thing that brought fame to Kendall College. Our mom got a National Endowment for the Humanities grant to study music in Ghana in 1972. And this is a letter of congratulations from the president of Kendall College, Wesley Westerberg. So she won a National Endowment Junior College Teacher Fellowship. And this is a letter congratulating her from Senator Charles Percy. We have the original in her files. Something to be very proud of.
And once my mother discovered ethnomusicology and went to Africa, went to Ghana, she decided to pursue that further and opened what she called the World Music Center. She became an Africanist and really began to study the not just the African music, but its roots shown in the music of the United States, whether blues, whether Scott Joplin. She became a scholar of ethnomusicology and an Africanist.
You can kind of see from the photo that she had these talents from two different areas. One is the harpsichord there, but then above it you see an African sculpture, a map of Africa, and she's holding a talking drum. She also performed all around Chicagoland on different keyboards, the piano, harpsichord, and clavichord. This is a photograph at a fancy event where she's playing the harpsichord.
And she was also acknowledged for her performances at this age, and she's no longer 18, but she's still performing and getting amazing reviews.
A pupil of hers built her clavichord. There's a clavichord kit, and she performed at the Courthouse Restaurant in Hyde Park for about 20 years, every Tuesday and Thursday night on the amplified clavichord. And many people from all over Chicagoland came to take part in those lovely dinners with the amplified clavichord coming through the house speakers. This is a picture of the clavichord and our mom. She also played during Black History Month at the Daly Center and a number of other places playing Scott Joplin, because Scott Joplin was an African-American composer who kind of initiated or innovated a whole new style of music which took the country by storm, ragtime.
But
in addition, go ahead.
In addition to being a scholar of ragtime and African music and ethnomusicology, our mom did not leave the classical world, and she also just studied and explicated Bach's ornaments in a lecture performance.
This is a CD that explains the mordents and the trills and all the different kinds of ornaments of Bach very clearly. But then she also started writing books. This is her first book with Hans Zell Publishers, a Pan-African annotated bibliography, probably because she'd spent time as a librarian at Deering Library. She had a knack for organizing, and she put together a beautiful bibliography, which is still available online. Then following that, a videography. She realized that you can't talk meaningfully about African music if you can't show the performance of African music and how it is related to dance and rites of passage, and it's part of the culture of many, many African societies. So she wrote this videography of African and African-related performance, kind of a first of its kind. And then a third book. This is a monograph in which she talked about the elements of African influence in Scott Joplin's music. This is a very, very technical and very erudite study of Scott Joplin's music, which has received also very positive reviews, kind of a breakthrough review, using a Western musical analysis on Scott Joplin to also find African roots. Our mom always said that of all the things, all the awards she'd ever gotten, Phi Beta Kappa, Phi Kappa Lambda, her 2 degrees from Northwestern, this made her the proudest. It is the honorary certificate she was awarded from the Program of African Studies at Northwestern in 1984, and she always had that framed and on the wall of her home. Unfortunately, it's a little the worse for wear, but you get the idea.
And more recently, our mother realized that her arrangement of the Star-Spangled Banner, our national anthem, was remarkable and was worthy of publishing and making the sheet music available to other people and performing it. And even to this day, it's a very unusual arrangement. It's emotional. And so she created the sheet music for it.
It's called a concert arrangement because it's not meant to be sung to. It's meant to be performed as a solo instrument. And it's very moving, actually, without the words. Just beautiful. You can find a YouTube of her performing this. Just Google Star-Spangled Banner, Carol Lems-Dworkin. It's got more than 10,000 likes already. Now we move into the last 25 years or so, where she became a grandmother. We call it Nanahood. She asked to be called Nana rather than Granny or Grammy or grandmother. Here she is with her first grandchild, baby Karima.
And this was 1987?
Yes, that's right. Yes, and like all of us, she absolutely adored her granddaughter. In 1988, we had a picture of 4 generations. There in the middle is our grandmother, who lived to the age of 97. Here she's actually only probably about 93 or 4. Our mom is on the right, and Kareem is there on the bottom, and then you can see Kareem's dad, my former husband, and me next to him, and one of my mom's beloved cousins, Aunt Marge. So there's 4 generations in that picture. Then Kenan was born in 1991. This looks like it's probably taken in 1993 or so, but Nana adores both of her grandchildren, her granddaughter and her grandson, Kenan. They had a lot of fun together, and she was very important helping out with my children, as I was also a single working mom. This is one of the games they'd play where she'd pretend to be asleep.
Torture her. No, and they have incredible memories of her raising them and being very much a part of their lives.
Yes, they also goofed around a lot. This is a picture of them goofing around, and even more goofing around here, where they make funny faces, and she took part in it. She never minded being goofy with the kids. This is an 80th birthday picture, just to show you that there really aren't many 80-year-olds that are in that kind of condition. Beauty, brains, poise, you name it. This is a picture of her with the kids when they got older. I think they were, Kenan was a teenager there. Karima might have been in her early 20s. We love to go to restaurants together. That's always been a pastime of our family. Her parents love to go to restaurants. And Martha and I went to a lot of restaurants with Mom when we were children, and the tradition has continued.
Right. And here you see a dress from Senegal. What's the story that Karima brought that back?
Karima had a Fulbright to Senegal, and while she was there, she got the measurements and had this dress tailor-made for our mom. And like when she was 10 years old, she loves to model, beautifully model clothing that is made for her. And here's another example of a Senegalese dress.
At age 81, my mother was still concertizing, or capable of concertizing, and she played Tchaikovsky's first piano concerto with the same orchestra that she had played with at 17, which is the Chicago Businessman's Orchestra.
There she is, age 81, gathering flowers from her performance. And here is a photo of her in her 90th birthday. That necklace was strung by Karima, who has quite a bit of talent in jewelry making and design. And we took her on an excursion on her 90th birthday. By then she was sporting a cane, but no less adventuresome. This was another birthday with the kids and me sometime around 2011. She was always up for a good time and always a very good sport.
Oh, that's right. And she liked to travel, and she still does. She never became a homebody, and she never thought of herself as older.
That's for sure. And she's still been politically active as well. We went to a rally for Bernie Sanders in 2015 when he was running for the Democratic nomination for president. She got front row seats because she had a cane. We're not exactly sure of the year of this, but this is the 70-year reunion of Clinton Elementary School in Rogers Park. You can see our mom in the back row, third from the left. You can also see Betty Banner also looking good on the far left in the second row. It's a wonderful graduating class that many children from Clinton are still left 70 years after they graduated is a testimony to the good nutrition and opportunities given to children in Chicago at this time. She was also one of the first residents to post the Black Lives Matter sign in her window. She's always believed in integration, in open housing, and in fairness and justice for African Americans, and is proud to stand by that sign. I don't know where we took this, Martha, but were we at a restaurant or?
It seems to me that this is another birthday.
Okay.
And this might have been at from the background, it does look like a restaurant. And you can see she's still happy and dressed pretty with the jewelry and the nice clothes. We're celebrating another birthday.
I think this was the vegan place on Devon.
Oh,
We have a lot of fun going out with her and having adventures. And there's one of the kids and me in Christmas '97. I put that in a holiday card. Here she is in 2018. And we just want to say that we all love you. We wish you a very happy birthday. We look forward, and we've always started planning for 100.
That's absolutely right. And we might add that this life is not over in terms of its accomplishments, achievements, and interesting new directions that our mom continues to have.